this, what we're doing now. And I will share my screen. Okay, so if you go back to our syllabus. Okay, so how many people use StatsCan?
I do.
Okay, how do you use it?
Well, like for example, I did an article for the Signal um, on caregiving in Canada, and StatsCan posted a bunch of stuff like I'm trying to think now, like how many caregivers there were in select provinces, and um, there's like four different tables that. So they had like an original one that was set on like how every now and then they do like a highlight kind of thing. So it was one of the things they're highlighting, and then they didn't have a bunch of information that I wanted specific to Nova Scotia. So then I requested more info through them, and they sent me a bunch of different tables and stuff on Excel, and that's where. Um,
Good. And you said something really key, is that you requested and they acquiesced. StatsCan is a fantastic service, and they do respond to reporters on deadline. They're very generous with their time. They're a big agency, but they respond in real time. And if they don't have the table, if you give them enough time, they might even do a special data run for you. As long as they already have the information, they will not create a special table for you. But if they already have the information and you need it in a different format or a different level of detail, they are certainly willing to provide that for you. So the big takeaway from that, hopefully you'll get from the next few weeks, is that StatCan is, when in doubt, go to StatsCan because they probably have it. So the first thing I'm going to point you to is the schedule here of releases. And for our purposes, on July the 10th, which is this Friday, they're releasing the new labor force survey numbers. What is the labor force survey?
doesn't it just talk about like unemployment and stuff like that?
Yeah,
That's the big
yeah,
takeaway.
yeah. Every month, it StatsCan releases the results of its survey of businesses to reveal the unemployment rate. So over the last, I would say since March, what has been the big unemployment story?
Unemployment rate is rising.
Absolutely. Why? The answer is self-evident, but what's the reason?
COVID-19.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go back to the syllabus. And so those are the schedules. And so if we click on the next link, which is the StatCan tables, we can see that there are almost 10,000 tables here. And on my left hand side, you have the subject areas, everything from agriculture to transportation, travel and tourism, all kinds of tables here. So I was digging into labor. Okay. And so labor gets it down to about 1,300, and then employment and unemployment, that gets it down to 737. And then the labor force characteristics, that gets it down to 116. And then monthly, because we know that these are released monthly, that gets it down to 7. Okay. And these are the two that we are going to be using. And so this if we click on this one right here, we can see that we have an interface that looks like this. So is everyone here, or do you want me to back up and click through this to get you through this to get you to this location again?
Do you mind just going back one step? I got a little lost in there.
Absolutely. So are you here? Did you get to here? Or do I need to go back one more?
Wait, I'm just reading those filters there. So monthly. Okay, yeah, now.
Okay, is everyone here now? So if you click on labor force characteristics by sex and detailed age group monthly unadjusted for seasonality, then you should, Here's another hint. If you're not sure, see where it says here, table 14100017-01. If you just copy that, and if you open another browser and paste it into the browser and hit enter, it takes you right to that table. Okay, so it's always important to pay attention to the table number. Okay, did everyone get that reference? Good. Okay, so what are we looking at here? There's a lot of stuff here. Any idea what this is, folks? What are the months that are covered?
January till May.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the kind of top level view, right? So if we click on Canada, we can see that our drop-down menu shows that it's not only Canada, but these are breakdowns for all the provinces and territories. Okay, because this is only the top level view, right? This is, and then the employment, we see that there are different categories for employment. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this add remove, click on this add remove data right here. So if we click that, and then we get to this interface here. And if I'm going to quickly, just let me know and I will stop and repeat what I'm doing. So we can see there are tabs across the top here. And the interface looks the same as it did before. But now we can change things, right? So if you go into each of these tabs here, we have geography. This plus sign means that there's more data that's available. And here we have the provinces. So we probably want, not probably, but we do want all of the provinces and territories. So if we click select all, then it means that all of the provinces and territories are selected. If we go to the next, labor force characteristics, and if that plus sign means that there's more stuff there. So we click plus sign, we click plus sign, we click plus sign. So it has defaulted just to employment, but there's all this other stuff here. So let's select all the items. So if we go back, we've selected all the geography. We've selected all of the labor force characteristics. Now let's go to sex or gender. Again, the plus, what does that plus sign mean, folks? What does that plus sign mean?
That there's more items in there.
Yeah, so if I click the plus sign, there we go. So it's giving me both sexes, but I also want to choose male and female. Why do I also want to choose male and female? Why don't, if it's defaulting to both sexes, then why do I have to specify that I want male and female? Any guesses? Is there a difference in unemployment rates between male and female? Do you think?
Yeah.
Probably, eh?
Yeah.
So it means that the more categories you have, the more you can divide up and group the information and analyze the information once you get it into a spreadsheet, which is what we are about to do. So that's why. Okay, so let's keep going. Age group. And look, we have all of the age groups here. That's great. The top level numbers that StatsCan produces on that first table that we saw is 15 years and over. In other words, everyone in the workforce starts at 15 and it goes to however old you want. But you've also got, all of these other categories as well, meaning that you might only be interested in people who are, say, between 15 and 24 to see how millennials are doing, or 25 to 29, or whatever the case may be, or maybe 70 years and older. So this really gives you good information. You want all of these age groups, because then you're going to be able to select. And then your reference period, we can see here, goes from January 20th to May the 20th. I chose January, no, and so I'm going to suggest that we probably want to go from January 2019, or actually let's make it May 2019 to May 2020. Any idea why I've extended that time period to May 2019? What do I want to do?
Compare to last year and just see how much it's changed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I sort of did, and you saw the same thing in the financial statement for Air Canada, is they compared the first quarter with the same period in 2019. So when you're comparing quarters, you compare it to the identical quarter for the previous year. And why would that be? Any idea? Why wouldn't I compare for Air Canada, why wouldn't I compare the first quarter of 2020 to the last quarter of 2019? It's just 2 quarters, right?
Well, for Air Canada, it'd be a lot of like seasonal flights, for example. So in May, you'd have a lot more tourism to, I don't know, just tourism in general. Versus
Exactly.
October.
You're by comparing identical quarters for different periods, you are comparing apples to apples. So if we look at the retail sector, for example, what is the busiest period? What quarter typically is the busiest period for the retail sector? Typically. Is it the winter? Is it the summer? What 3 months? What are the busiest 3 months for the retail sector?
I would say June to August, summer.
Okay, that could be a busy month, but what tends to be the busiest month in North America anyway, and Europe?
Uh, Christmas, December,
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
maybe.
Yeah. So December, November, October, and I say in Western society because, of course, you wouldn't have that in necessarily many African countries um, where Christians are a minority, or Asian countries, or India, for example, wouldn't be the case. So that's why I stress Western countries in Europe and North America, okay, where they're going on the Christian calendar. And so if you want to compare how the retail sector is doing, you wouldn't compare the first quarter of 2020 with the third quarter of 2019. You would compare the third quarter of 2000, or the fourth quarter rather, of 2019 with the fourth quarter of 2020. So you'd have to wait until the next Christmas period, which is October, November, and December of 2020. So here we want to compare apples to apples. We want to compare May 2020 to May 2019. And that'll give us an idea of the employment picture. Okay, so that I extended this time period to past June, past the default time period that StatsCan gave me. So let's just review, before we apply this, let's just review what we've done. In our geography, you should have everything. In our labor force characteristics, everything should be selected. Sex, male and female. Age group, everything should be selected. The default is 15 and over. That captures the entire workforce, but we can see here with the various categories that you can specify. Once we get into the data, we can specify different age groups, but we're going to select everything, and our reference period is going to be from May 2019 to May 2020. And it says estimated number of data points is 94,380, which is that is the number of rows in our Excel sheet that are going to appear. And we should be able to apply this. It takes a few seconds to load. Sometimes the StatsCan website can be very slow because you can imagine how many people are using it. And I find that sometimes when I'm doing this stuff on the weekend, it's down completely. So you sometimes have to be patient. Okay, so there we have it. Now we are going to go to our download option. So you can actually see if we scroll across here, you can see it's a bit of a mess to look at, right? I mean, you just cannot work with this. So we are going to download this into a format that's a little easier to manipulate. So if we go to our download options tab, this is very important. We want to choose the download selected data for database loading. So I'll just repeat that. Once we've applied all of the criteria that we set, we go to download options and then download selected data for database loading is the third option. So we select that and we can see that it opens to a folder that I created for this class and for this session. And just now you might not want to call it, a number and then database loading data. You might want to call it something else. So what you don't want to get rid of is the number, because remember that this number right here is the actual table number. So you want to cut. Very important. And remember that you can actually take that table number, pop it into your search engine, and it will come up. So you probably want to call this labor force stats May 2020. Okay. CSV, it's in a CSV format. CSV stands for comma separated value, which is another way of saying that it's a text file, but Excel or Google Sheets will open a CSV file. So CSV stands for comma separated value. And that is covered in the Data Journalist. If we hit save, then it saves it to my folder where I have, and there I've done a few of these, so obviously there's more in my folder than would be in yours. So if I open up this CSV file now, you will get something that looks like this. So is everyone here? Everyone is with me so far? Okay. So this is your CSV file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my website, my StatsCan website. I'm going to close that dialog box, and I'm going to take this URL, copy the URL. I'm going to go back to my worksheet. And let me close that. And I'm going to paste it into my first available cell in the first row, which is R. I'm going to paste it there. And then I'm going to save this. Okay, so then I go up to File, click on File, and then Save As. So I'm going to save this CSV file as an Excel file. Very, very, very important step. So I will repeat that. Once you've pasted the URL into the first available cell in the first row, you go to File, you go to Save As, and you want to save this CSV, this comma separated value format. You get click on your caret, you get a drop-down menu. You want to save it as an Excel workbook, which has the extension XLSX. XLSX. You want to save it as an Excel workbook and hit. Okay. So what is the difference between a CSV file and an Excel file? A CSV file only accommodates one worksheet. An Excel file accommodates many. So the difference between an Excel file and a CSV file would be a CSV file would be one sheet of paper. An Excel file is a book. Okay? A book has many sheets. A sheet of paper has one sheet. And I'm stressing this because if you don't save it as an Excel file and you do what we're doing, which is to create multiple worksheets, when you go to save that, it will eliminate all of the extra worksheets that you have produced and will only give you the original. So that's why it's very, very important for you to save it as an Excel file. So let's just take a look at our data. And these are the columns of information that we saw. But instead of being in a row right across, this format is a little bit more user-friendly in that every row has the same information. Okay, so every row has a date, it has a geographic marker. This is just a StatsCan code that you don't have to worry about. It has a labor force characteristic. It has a indication for sex or gender. It has an age group. Every row has the same kind of information, the same category of information, which means that it becomes imminently possible to group it, as we will do in a second. Okay, so you have the, and then the value here, this is where all the numbers are. So if we apply our filter, it gives us, applying the filter will give us a little bit better idea of what is contained in this data. And really, applying a filter is one of the first things that you should do when you open up a data set in Excel, because it allows you to, what we like to call, interview the data. We are treating this like any other source, and before we go too much further, we want to know what's here. So if we click any cell in the first row, and if you go to data and then your filter here, you apply your filter. Okay, so I will do that again. You click the first cell in any row, you go to your, and here I'm on my, you go to data and then filter. It's a little funnel here, filter. And what it does is it turns every column into a drop-down menu. And so for your dates will be organized here. And you've got all of your geography. And you've got your characteristics. And if you want to expand the size of the drop-down menu, you can just place your cursor to the bottom right where you've got these three dots. It turns into a little arrow, and then you can pull it and you can just expand the section there, and we can see that it has all of the different categories. And in sex, we can see that it's both sexes, females and males, and we have all of our age groups. And then these are all of the values. And we can also see that if we click A1, we should be able to see to our bottom right here, we should be able to see a count of the number of records, data points, as StatsCan calls them, or rows. 94,381. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom with our vertical scroll bar, we can see that it is 94,381. So, I mean, you could filter this for, let's say that you only wanted the most recent date, which is 20, and that's year month, right? So 2020-05, which is May 20th. Okay, that gives us just the most recent date. And let's just say that we only wanted to filter this for Canada. So you would deselect and just select Canada. And let's say in other words, we are mimicking all of the defaults that StatsCan gave us when we opened the table and had our first glimpse at it. So the date is, again, just the most recent date. The geography is just Canada. The sexes, we want just both sexes. Age group, remember I was saying that the default is 15 and over, because 15 and over captures the entire age force. You're eligible to work once you're 15, 16. So that's what StatsCan does, is they give you that age range. So 15 years and over. And oh, I forgot, labor force characteristics. We only want the unemployment rate. So there we have it, right? Unemployment rate is over here in the value, it was 13.8. So we filtered that. So that's how we can use the filter just to get at what we want. And we can, as you can see, we can filter many columns at once, And how do we know that a column is filtered? When the caret turns into a funnel. So that's filtered. Reference date is filtered. Geography is filtered to Canada. Reference date is May 2020. The labor force characteristic is unemployment. The sex, I want both sexes. 15 years and over is the age group. And the value, not a great name for that, but the value is the unemployment rate, which is 13.8. And we can see that in all of the stories. So that's not bad, but what we're going to do is get this into a pivot table that will now allow us to compare the geographies, because I could actually compare the geography. So if I wanted to select all of them, right, I would now have all of the unemployment rates for all of the jurisdictions. So I'll just do that again. Initially, just Canada was selected. Okay. Initially, just Canada was selected. I went in here and I just cleared the filter, or I just selected all. I selected all, and here I can see that the unemployment rates appear for the different jurisdictions. And then I can actually then sort this column in descending order. So I can click on M2, and I can sort this in descending order. Okay, largest to smallest. And I can see that Newfoundland and Labrador had the highest value or unemployment rate, followed by Alberta and then Ontario. Is it any surprise? Why do you think that Newfoundland, Labrador, and Alberta had the highest rates? Any idea why that might be? What dominates the economies in both of those jurisdictions? Is it tourism? Is it manufacturing?
Probably be like oil or
Oil and gas.
yeah.
And we know the oil and gas sector has been hammered.
Hmm.
So that's why. Why do you think, interestingly enough, like Manitoba was barely touched? 11, well, I shouldn't say barely touched, but 11%. It had the lowest rate. Why do you think Manitoba, Saskatchewan, like these provinces here, why do you think they were not hit as severely? Any guesses? Largely because they don't have big industrial sectors that got hammered. Okay, especially a jurisdiction like Manitoba, which had the lowest. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how these numbers shake down on Friday. But as we can see, the Manitoba, now Saskatchewan, I'm surprised that Saskatchewan is as low as it is, because Saskatchewan is also resource based. So I'm a little surprised that it's not higher. Although I should take that back. 12.9, that's 13, almost 13%. That is high. That's right up there as well. But certainly Manitoba is very low. So that's what you could do without even just by sorting and filtering. We can see how we can compare. And if we wanted to do just say just males, we can compare the rates for males, right? And we can see, and then if we sort this in descending order again, we can see that the male unemployment rate was the highest in, again, Alberta, in Newfoundland, Labrador, Alberta, and New Brunswick. New Brunswick is up there. And the reason that that is interesting to have Canada there, and we can just highlight Canada, right click, and we can just color code that yellow just to make it more interesting to see, is we can see how these compare to the Canadian unemployment rate. So for males, the unemployment rate for males was the worst in Newfoundland, Alberta, and New Brunswick. And so if we did that for females, let's just see if we have the same, and we sort the value in descending order. Prince Edward Island and Alberta. Who knew? So Prince Edward Island had the highest unemployment rate for females, 15 and over. Now, if we wanted to choose different age groups, we can go here and we could choose, say 20 to 24. And if we sort that in descending order, so Ontario had the highest unemployment rate for females in the 20 to 24 range, and Alberta was up there 32.7% for that category. That's unbelievable. So what I'd like you to do is, over the next couple of days, you can use this recorded tutorial. Is just kind of play around with some of these things, and so you can create a new worksheet for each one of these. So let's say I wanted just to copy this, and I paste this. I can paste this into a new worksheet. Control V, and I can call this female. Female UI, and I'm being very economical with my characters here because these tabs only accommodate so many characters. So female UI unemployment 20 to 24, and that becomes 1. And then if I want to get rid of these marching ants, which is the way that Excel tells you that it has copied something, I can just click outside the table and just hit my space bar. So let's say I wanted to do now, instead of females, I wanted to do males. I think, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then I can copy this, and I can create a new worksheet. And I can call this male UI 20 to 24. And then if I sort this in descending order, I can see that for males, the highest unemployment for males in that category, in that age group was Newfoundland, and then New Brunswick, and then for females, the highest unemployment rate for women in that category was Ontario and Alberta. And I like color coding that, so I would just highlight those two. I'll right click and I'll just use my fill color as yellow. And for males, I'll do the same thing and just use my right click and use my fill color as, and be sure to save as you go. And again, make sure that this extension here is XLSX and not CSV, because if it was CSV and you went to save this, it would eliminate the extra worksheets that you have created. And so just by sorting and filtering and copying the filter data set that you created from your main table and copying them into successive worksheets, we can see a picture that is starting to evolve. And hopefully you can get a better understanding of why we downloaded all of the categories, because then it allowed us to split things up into male, female. It allowed us to use different age groups. And then by sorting, it allows us to very quickly eyeball and compare jurisdictions. And we can see that for males from 20 to 24, they had the highest unemployment in Newfoundland, Labrador, and the lowest unemployment in Prince Edward Island. And you could also filter just for the Atlantic provinces and do the same thing if you wanted by just comparing them, for example. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So hopefully through this exercise, you've seen the advantage of whenever we can getting information into a spreadsheet, because it just allows you to do so much more with just some filtering and sorting. What we will do on Thursday is we will continue this exercise, but I will then show you how to get this information into a pivot table, which will allow us to do even more analysis than we're doing now. Okay, so I'm going to stop. And then, so if you wanted to get rid of these funnels here, you could click on each one and you could clear the filter. Click on each one, clear the filter, right? Or if you just wanted to get rid of the filters altogether and you didn't want them anymore, just click on the filter. And then again, just make sure you save. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And does anybody have any questions? We're almost done. Any questions? Did anybody find that interesting? Please say yes.
Yeah, a little bit. It's nice to, because I've had to use tables like that and always found myself lost in Excel. So it's nice to be able to filter stuff like that. So you're not just scrambling through billions of numbers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can see the rationale for downloading everything, because the more you download, the more categories you download, then that gives you more options for filtering and sorting and comparing. Does that rationale make a little bit more sense now?
Yeah.
What about you, Marianne? What do you think?
Well, I like, because I know that when you look at StatsCan, sometimes you can get lost in numbers, and sometimes you don't even put all the numbers on the same page. So it's nice to have everything in one area and to have it be filtered out.
Mm-hmm. Alan, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't even really know that you could export the spreadsheet and look at it that way. So that's pretty cool.
A lot of people
But
don't.
I did have,
A lot of people don't.
I do have a question, David.
Yeah.
Mine, when I was saving it, the Excel worksheet option was XLS instead of XLXS. Is that okay? Is that the same?
That mainly means that you have an older version of Excel,
Oh, okay.
which could be a problem because the older version of Excel does not support as many records. The older version of Excel only has a limit of about 65,000 rows. The newer version of Excel is anything from, I think, 2007 on up, something like that, has a capacity of about 1.2 million rows. So you might want to get an updated version of Excel. And I know that you should be able to use your student account to download that.
Okay, I'll look at.
So if you're not sure, if you can ask Jeff Harper, he would know what you should do.
Thanks.
Okay? Yeah. Any other questions? So your main task is to think about your assignment, think about the business that you want to write about, think about the sector. I'm suggesting tourism is a good one, but it could be any sector that you want. It really depends on you. But just kind of think about it. Try to get the textbooks, the e-textbooks through Carleton. If you're having any problems, please let me know. The sooner you get the books, the better. And if you ever have any questions, the quickest thing to do is just email me, and we can always hop onto this space and do some screen sharing and so on. Okay, because this is a live space. I don't have to send you a specific invite. The space is ours for the next 5 weeks. So I will stop recording this when we say goodbye, and I will save it, and then you will have access to it. And once I think it's fairly easy to find, but I will send you the instructions that I will get from Joe. So before we sign off, any other questions? How did we find this, our first virtual session? Good, bad, indifferent? Better than you thought? Worse than you thought?
I'm definitely happy that we have the screen sharing thing, at least so we can follow the steps. I was able to follow today, but I know like sometimes it goes in one ear out the other, so it's good that we can practice on our own time.
Right.
But yeah, overall it was good for me. I got booted
Good.
out once, which was kind of weird, but besides that,
Why?
I have no idea. I think my laptop was just overheating a little bit, but I got
Okay.
back in really quickly.
Good. Good. I agree, Travis. I think that it's obviously the one-to-one is better. But I think that one of the big advantages of this is the screen sharing and the fact that we can record sessions, and you can then download, and you can repeat at your own leisure. And so I think that once we get out of this pandemic, I think that this will be a new model, which will be a hybrid, that all of the technical stuff could be done virtually, and yet the sessions where you really need to discuss and have a dialogue and a bit of a back and forth, that's obviously better in person. But I think that certainly the screen sharing is an advantage.
Mm.
Okay, anyone else want to weigh in before we say goodbye? All right, well, you have Aaron tomorrow, so good luck with that. And we will see you back on Thursday, but there'll be lots of email exchange between now and then. Okay?
Awesome.
Okay, see you later.